Hi, I'm here with my family interview, and I'm here with my grandpa.
Hi, I'm John Zelmer. I'm Austin's grandfather, and known him for over 12 years
My
now.
whole life.
Yeah.
And so, where and when were you born?
Okay, I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, in a university hospital, and that was December of 1949.
Right. Do you share a name with anyone else in your family? If so, who? And do you know the name where the name originally came from?
Actually, yes. I was named after my great grandfather. He was John Milton Miller, and he was a distant relation of John Milton, the poet. John Milton Miller was a seafaring captain from the British Wavy Navy back in the First World War, and he migrated to Australia, where he became a superintendent of Port of Perth and Fremantle, Australia, Southwest Australia.
Where was your first house, and what are your earliest memories of your home?
The first house I remember was in Bethesda, Maryland. That would have been about 1952. We lived in an apartment in St. Louis previous to that, and it was a nice house, small. It was a kind of a ranch with a basement, a nice backyard with a big tree. We had a big pine tree and another big nut tree and a sandbox in there. We had a clothes chute in our house between the first and the basement, first floor and the basement. And as kids, we used to use that as a alternate way to get up and down to the basement.
What school did you go to when you were my age?
Okay, when I was in junior high school, we had moved from our original house in Bethesda to a different one, also in Bethesda, and that was Pyle Junior High, Pyle. It was very close, actually. Walking 2 blocks, we were at the fence that went around the school, and we would slide between the posts of the fence, and we were on the playing field of the school. And it was a fairly new school too. Had a good time there, a lot of friends, so we had a good time, and I can't remember too many bad situations there, but growing up in middle school can be trying, but we had a bunch of guys that we used to hang with, and it was fun.
So I know, obviously. So what siblings came later to you after great grandpa married for the second time?
Okay, originally my birth mom from Australia passed away in May of 1959. And later that year, when we came to Wisconsin, Dad met again one of his high school chums that they grew up in Milwaukee, and got acquainted again, and they were married that fall. Originally from my side of the family, the Australian side, there were 3 children, an older sister, myself, and a younger sister. That would be Cheryl, myself, John, and then Wendy. On the other side of the family, there was Nancy, Rick, and Bradley. And Nancy and Cheryl were almost the same age, and my brother Rick and I were almost the same age. Wendy and Bradley were years apart from the rest of us, but we had a really good nucleus as a family. Both parents adopted the other 3 children, and we became almost like a Partridge Family in a sense, if you know that old program from TV. We got along very well.
So,
a couple of scuffles, initially as you figure out the pecking order, but all in all, quite good. We still talk to each other very nicely.
Almost everybody went to the reunion in Galveston, right? Who didn't go? Was it?
Nancy was the only one that didn't make it this past
To the
spring.
reunion.
She had issues that time, but the rest of the
Everybody else was there.
the siblings and some children and grandchildren.
It's like, were you and Was it Rick? Was your age? Right?
Yeah, Rick.
Were you two ever put in the same classes or no?
Occasionally, I don't think they had an issue with that. Sometimes we were, sometimes we weren't.
Because I know sometimes now, like, you can. I don't know anymore, but like last year, I think, or years prior to before, you could like request if you wanted your siblings in the same classes or not. But I was just wondering, since I know you guys get along pretty well, and I bet you did back then, even though with the pranks you did on each other.
Yeah.
But so what did you like and not like about school?
I basically liked my classes, and a lot of friends. And it was close, very close. We had a lot of good teachers there. I guess there were some courses that were not particularly my favorite at that point. I think French was one of them, but since then I've realized that knowledge of another language is probably a good thing.
Mm-hmm. So, what was your first job?
First job I had was at age 12. I had a paper route, and back then, newspaper route. Back then, the distributor would drop off the papers on your driveway, and there you would put them together. You would sub them, and we had my brother Rick had a route, and I had a route. We put them in our wagons, and our routes were right there in the neighborhood. Mine went about 5 blocks downhill. His went about 5 or so blocks uphill. So the route was close. The papers were dropped off. We had a carport where if it rained, we could pull them in there and put them together without them getting wet. So it was a good job.
So,
And I worked on that for 6 years till I was in high school.
So I remember you said like kind of like you worked at the like just kind of cleaned up at the CIA a little bit, right? Like did a little cleaning. Right?
Yeah, my dad worked for the CIA, and during the summers of junior and senior year in high school, he got me employment there. I was a WAE, which is when actually employed. We were paid $2.50 an hour. That was good money. And my actual jobs were to go out on the runs of the classified garbage truck. We would pick up bags of shredded classified garbage from the CIA buildings, and there were buildings all over the Washington, D.C. area, not just in Langley, Virginia, where the headquarters was, but in different various locations. And we would go pick up the garbage, bring them back to the central office at Langley, and it was put into a big emulsifier where they just make it into some kind of mulch. And I also was a security guard at some of these alternate sites down in McLean, Virginia. So did that, and then we were furniture movers in the Langley building. Big file cabinets, dressers, desks, huge safes. They had every room, every executive office had safes, and they were heavy.
So, do you have a favorite childhood memory, and if so, what is it?
Well, when we were up at Big Cedar Lake in Wisconsin, we would do a lot of swimming and boating and fishing. That was always a lot of fun. But normally back in Maryland, where we grew up, we played a lot of board games, and we also built a lot of plastic models, like airplanes, ships, tanks, various cars and vehicles. And sometimes when the Bradley, the little guy, he would sometimes come in our room and run amok. He would break some of our models, at which time, if the models were broken, we were shattered. But we would take these models, and I remember one time in particular, we went to elementary school. We were also into rocketry, Estes rockets, and we would take some of the airplane models and glue a rocket model onto it and put it on a platform and light the fuse and send it up in the air. And there were also 2-stage rockets, so you could put 2 stages on your beat up plastic model that you were going to send, and it would send it up in the sky, the first stage, and then the next stage had an explosive charge on it, and it would literally blow it up. So we had a lot of fun with stuff like that.
Is there something you've always wanted to do but never got the chance to do?
Probably more traveling overseas. Got a touch of that, but busy with family and jobs here. But we've been talking about going to Ireland soon, and I have history with southern Germany and actually Germany, Prussia. That's in northern Germany and Australia. So those are places I'm thinking about possibly going.
What advice do you have for me about growing up?
Um, Find out, decide on what you like to do, and stick with it. And if it's something that you truly find enthralling and you like it, you can make it into a career. Always be friendly with folks, with people, and if they choose to show you that otherwise that they're not friendly, well, you at least you've gone out of your way, so you've made a positive connection. But find something you enjoy doing and be amiable to people.
So I got some questions that I came up with. So what? Great grandpa was in the CIA for until you said you're like in your 30, around 30.
Almost 30 years.
So like basically the whole time you're in his house, like lived in his household, he was always in the CIA. So could you tell me kind of what that was like?
Okay, well, in the early years, it was 8 to 5, pretty much job. And then as he worked his way up and finally became executive director of some of the departments, he would report to the president every Friday of the United States. And frequently he was sent on assignments all over the world, Europe, Asia, Far East in Asia, not so much South America, but it was mostly Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, where we had a lot of issues and assets. He would be gone for 1 or 2 weeks, and your things have to get done around the house, the cutting of the yard and whatnot. But those were our jobs anyway, so we kind of just took over, Rick and I. Brad, not so much; he was younger, but I guess growing up. Dad was he was the sole breadwinner in the family. Mom was kind of a housewife and a housemaker, and she kept everything going beautifully. And Dad was the sole provider, and on his salary, he put all of us through college. So back then, I'm sure it wasn't extravagant what he made, but it was more than enough to live comfortably and put everybody through college. So we all... we missed him when he was gone, but when he came back, he always came back with some kind of little memento from where he went, and also a lot of really nice museum quality items that were given to him or he purchased from heads of states, China, Taiwan, some of the Middle Eastern states.
But so, what was it like? So the first time he remarried, you were still living with him, right? Yeah, because 51, you said Babs died.
My Australian mother died in 1959.
And then,
later that year,
he remarried.
He remarried.
Then, obviously, the second time you obviously had my mom, so you had a family of your own. So that wasn't as much, kind of difference for you. But what was it like the first time with? Kind of having a new mom and then new siblings.
It was different in a way because now you're double the size of your family basically. Now you have 2 adults and you have 6 children instead of 1 adult when my Australian mom had passed away and Dad and we had a maid come into the house and do a lot of stuff for preparation and whatnot and watch the kids and everything. But the transition was, I would have to say, quite smooth. We were all, 4 of us were very close in age, so we bonded really well. Both our parents were very loving and very compassionate and understanding. They knew that there would be times when it might be a little bit difficult for us, whether it was school or just interrelationships. And as a result, I think basically we got along. And the new mom that we had and the new dad that they had, they really did a nice job of bonding the family together.
So, like when they were dating at first and weren't married, did you ever get to meet any of your other siblings before they were married, or no?
Not much. It was pretty quick. My biological dad, and then the mom I pretty much grew up with my entire life until she passed away in 1999. You know, I knew her from 1960 to 2000, basically 40 years. They had known each other in Milwaukee from the time they were in junior high school and the church they went to. And they always got together in the summer out at the Big Cedar Lake. So they knew each other. And my dad went off to war, and the gentleman that my mom Lois knew, he went off to war. He was in the army in Europe, and they came back, and Lois got married to the army soldier, and Dad had met an Australian woman in Western Australia, and both of their spouses passed away about the same time in the late 50s. And so you have one spouse and 3 children, and they knew each other, and it was kind of a union made in heaven, basically.
All right. Thank you, Grandpa.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thanks for asking me all these great questions.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, take care.